I think a lot of sculpting is just breaking things down into simple forms. So, like a hand is basically a sort of a square, and then the fingers are all different cylinders. So you have like a ball, a cylinder, a ball, a cylinder, and then you just sort of piece those together, and then you go for expression and things like that. About 4 years ago, I was feeling really stuck in my job. I was traveling 365 days a year for 12 years as an actor in the National Broadway tour of the Phantom of the Opera. Before bed one night, I sort of said out loud, I want to find a way to reactivate my creativity, my imagination. It was really a lot of trial and error, but most of it came from me having a vision of certain images, and I would seek to just put those down in clay, and I would sit back and I'd ask myself, does that look real? Does that look believable? That's sort of how I got started. I would sculpt in my hotel rooms at night, and so wherever I was, I would set up a small sculpting studio. So early in 2010, we found out that the Broadway tour of Phantom of the Opera was going to be closing. The tour had been out for 18 years. It was the longest running Broadway tour, and I'd been with it for 12 years. So that was creating a lot of uncertainty for me. I didn't know what really would be coming next. People would ask me, what is your dream life going to be that you're going to create? And for me, it was to find a place to put down some roots, be a part of a community. And I think with the opportunity to sculpt and maybe stay in one place, that really appealed to me. So I got out a piece of clay, and it was really interesting. It's not so much that I had a vision about what I was going to sculpt. It was more of a feeling. And the feeling that I had was sort of being on the edge of something great that was coming. The feeling that I had was, actively reaching out into my future, into the unknown. And the way that I chose to depict that was to make this sculpture Vaughn, meaning where to. So the piece is situated on the edge of the base. The toes of one foot and the fingers of one hand are gripping the edge, while the other hand is actively reaching out into the darkness of the unknown future. I wanted it to depict a desperation, but also a tenacity and a belief that the answer is out there, if only just beyond reach at the moment. That's also why the piece doesn't have a head with eyes to see into the darkness of the unknown future. When my friend Billy first saw the piece, he nicknamed it The Edge of Glory, after the Lady Gaga song. I laughed, but I had to admit that the positioning of the sculpture in reference to the song title did seem fitting. So in October of 2010, I had this dream of how the scope and the message of this piece could be greater than what I had originally thought. The reason that I had originally sculpted the piece was just to be, self-expressive. But this dream that I had that night, I saw very clearly this sculpture, large scale, and it was it was very specific to this area. It was in the sculpture garden of the Jocelyn Art Museum. And there's a long black wall that runs parallel to one of the major streets through Omaha. And what I saw in that dream was the base of the sculpture just a little bit higher than the height of the wall. And the sculpture was reaching out over the wall towards the street. And when I saw that in my dream, I was like, what is this? What am I seeing? What does this mean? And then all of a sudden, I guess in my dreamy state, I had this idea of how this sculpture could maybe be a landmark or a beacon to people that were going through difficult times. You know, it was a hopeful sculpture for me. And I was thinking, wow, I wonder if this could be a message of hope to others on a large scale. You know, I had read stories in the newspaper and I'd seen TV news coverage of young people taking their own lives because they were bullied, because they were harassed for being gay or lesbian. You know, growing up, I was one of those kids myself. I was bullied, I was harassed, I contemplated suicide, and I felt like all of a sudden all of these different points were coming together to create a larger message for this sculpture. And it was a message of hope. And I think that this sculpture for me, in regard to that, was just this idea of, you might feel like you're really on the edge right now. You might not feel as though you have a friend around you. You might really feel alone. But you know, on that edge and reaching out into your future is such a powerful place to be. Imagine with me the impact that this large-scale sculpture could have on young people, knowing that it was created for them, to remind them of their greatness, their purpose, and that they are valued and loved. My goal is that someone or a group of people would commission this piece, large scale, and then turn around and donate it to a public art space like a park, a school, an entertainment venue, or maybe something like the sculpture garden at the Jocelyn Art Museum here in Omaha, Nebraska. My goal is to produce one sculpture. My vision is that one sculpture could lead to many sculptures, that we could then donate or gift to other public art spaces around the country, so that it's not just a centrally located sculpture here in the Midwest, but maybe something that reaches out to the East Coast, the West Coast, and maybe even internationally. I'm looking for help from people that would share my vision, to make a bold statement of hope. People who will take a stand against bullying, that will make a decision to respect and support others, no matter what that might look like. I believe that art can positively impact a community in which it's placed, bringing hope and encouragement to those that need it the most. I believe this sculpture could be a reminder to all of us, in whatever situation that we find ourselves in, whatever challenging situation that we find ourselves in, that we are all on the edge of glory. If we could just hang on, reach out, and trust.